Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. We are going to be doing some more work on this oval Beetle pickup truck, see if we can save it. But not only that, we are going to name this truck later on in the episode. So, exciting times. And in the last episode, I concentrated on this area here, which was cutting out the rotty section of the heater channel, remanufacturing it out of fresh steel, and also making a repair panel for the side. And what I've done ahead of time is pretty much the same thing on the other side. So I did start making a video about repairing the other side, but it turns out it was almost identical. But the only difference on this side is that I've allowed for a door gap. I've moved this panel back ever so slightly. In the last video, I did move this door back on its hinges, which decreased this gap down the side of the panel. So I managed to get the gap back just by moving this panel ever so slightly backwards. So I'm happy, because a door that shuts is always a good thing. So if you did want to know how I repaired this side, it pretty much is exactly the same as the other side, which I did in a previous video. So you can go ahead and watch that. And the reason why I didn't include it is nobody likes repetition. Nobody likes repetition. And as you can see, looking at the box of rotten parts, for example, this section here was this section under here. It's pretty much the same story. It is just a mangled mess of rot, which has been cut out and replaced with fresh steel. So the area we're going to tackle today is this back window. So as far as back windows go, well, this kind of does the job. It's pretty big, it's got good visibility, nothing wrong with that, but the customer would like a smaller window aperture installed in the back. And I have no idea where this back window is from. It's like the rest of the car, it's a little bit of a mystery, but one thing I can see is that someone has made some incisions to make this window slightly narrower, so it could be off a big truck. They just cut it and then narrowed it and then welded it in position. And this window frame here is a double skinned one, and it's like a box section that runs all the way around here, which is pretty good because when it's welded in like this, it does actually create a strong area. And as this has already created a decent bit of strength between the sides of the car, if I was actually to remove this, I've got a feeling that the sides might get a bit floppy. So as I'm happy with the strength of this section, what I'm going to do is try and utilize as much of this as possible and stitching in the window in the middle. And the customer has kindly supplied a new window aperture. This is a lot smaller. Looking at it, I think it used to be the tailgate of a Type 2 bus. But the actual aperture itself, it looks pretty good. It looks quite strong, so we can use this section. And I know what you're thinking. Surely a oval truck deserves a oval rear window. But the more I think about it, a smaller square one would probably look quite cool too. So the first thing I need to do is bare metal this area. I've got a feeling there's going to be some filler there and there might be some rot. What I'll be using is the flat wheel on the grinder again. Let's just get some of this chod off. So with that removed, we can see what's going on underneath. And to be honest, there's no real horror stories. There's a bit of surface rust here and there, but there's no actual deep rot on this window frame at all, which is great because now I feel happy that this is solid enough to accept the new window frame. And this car being what it is a little bit wonky, a little bit crazy, and it does have a cut and welded rear aperture. So what I've done is I've just measured and marked across the back here, just so I've got a center point. Where I actually thought was the center point was this hole here. It turns out to be slightly to the left of it, so I would have been 10 mil out if I followed this hole here. So what I need to do now is mark and cut this window aperture out of the donor section. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I wish they left a little bit more material on this edge here, because that's going to be a little bit more difficult to weld back into position, but they've already cut this top section off here, so I need to mark and cut that off nice and straight. And then what I do, just on this swage line here, I'm going to cut this along here. Any excess material I can lose along the way. So what I've done is I've just chopped off the excess material, top and bottom, and what I've also done is marked a center line on the frame. And at the back, I've also marked a center line at the top of this section here. And I've also just taken a rough measurement from the bottom to the top of this window frame. And what I need to do is trim off the excess on the inside of the frame. This is actually going to leave me with probably only a tiny bit, maybe only 5 mil on this edge here. And then what I can do is cut off the return edge on the vehicle and then hopefully just post this into position. On jobs like this, I tend to use the angle grinder a lot, and I use quite a thin disc. This is only a 1mm disc. It's just a quick tip really. If you find yourself using the angle grinder a lot and your cutting discs are just not lasting very long, this could be a couple of reasons. The main reason is you're probably pushing too hard. I tend to just let the angle grinder disc do its work. And the other one is that if the panel is vibrating, it can actually seriously reduce the life of the disc too. And also when you're cutting and you want a seriously straight line and you're using an angle grinder to cut it, what I normally do is I make sure that the angle grinder is almost halfway into the disc, and this actually stops it from tilting. If you concentrate just on the edge of the angle grinder, you may find yourself with wavy lines all the way down your panel. So what I've just done is offered up the panel at the rear here. The back edge here, where there's two skins, slips over this panel here quite nicely. And then at the back here, I just have a thin edge like that there. But at the top, now I know how wide this panel's gonna be. I can go ahead and chop out the excess material that I don't need. So I've just marked it up in the corners on each side. And what I'll do is just remove this material here, the return edge where the two panels join, just along the top there. So that's the excess material cut off from inside this panel, and this panel just offered into place, and already it's sitting quite nicely. And something else I forgot to mention about the placement of this window when I was marking it up was this distance from the gutter to the top of the aperture there. It's about 55 mil, which is pretty similar to what's on the door. I kind of figured it would look a bit prettier if the window itself is at the similar level to the window at the front. So now I'm happy that the window frame is in the position I want. I now need to weld it into position. Along the bottom here, I'm just going to do a straight cut, and what I'll do is I'm going to cut through both panels and then push the outer skin towards the inner skin and weld it in position. I'm doing that because I've got loads of strength still left in this lower section as this is uncut. But at the top here, where I actually have removed a section from behind this panel to get it fitting nice and flat, what I'm going to do is I'll do a straight cut here, and then I'll do a flanged edge on the car body itself, and then I'll weld it into position. And on the inside, you can see here, this is the new panel and this is the old panel, and where I've cut it here, it just has a slightly rolled edge. And what I can do now is I can weld this in position here, and also at the top edge here, you can see that it's sitting quite flush. It's quite a good fit, so I can go ahead and weld the inside of the frame on here. So I've just realized something. I've kind of snookered myself. So on the inside of this panel, there's a box section, and unfortunately there isn't 10 mil for me to put a joggled or flanged edge onto this part of the panel, and not enough room for me to tuck it under. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just mark a straight edge, cut it, and then push the outer panel in to meet the original panel. And another thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to actually bare metal this aperture, so I won't have any problems trying to remove the paint when I'm welding later. So what I've done is I've marked and cut the bottom and the top of this aperture just so it can sit really nice into the existing panel, and that bottom edge has actually come out quite nicely. Obviously I do need to finish welding that in, but the top part here, you can see it's very old and it's very wavy, so not a great fit, but it will do. So before I finish welding this panel in, I need to do something with these side panels. Leaving these areas here open means I do have the opportunity to tuck a panel up behind it if I want to do it that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark it, template it, cut it out of steel and see how I get on. So all I've done is just used a bit of cardboard, marked it with a pen from the inside and then cut it out. And what I'm trying to achieve is I want the panel to sit just beyond the rolled edge. So then there's very minimal amount of body working to be done afterwards. So that's everything tacked into position, and when I was making this panel here I just made 2 of them and it's a mirror image on the other side. So now I'm happy with the fitment of everything. I can just go ahead, carry on welding these, and then I can grind it back. So there we go, all welded in and all the welds have been ground down. Something I really do love about doing projects like this, whether it be modifying or custom work, is that you have the freedom to do whatever you want to do. There are no rules, there are no boundaries. And when you're doing something like a original restoration of a vehicle, you need to make sure that it's almost textbook how it left the factory. But cars like this, you can really let your imagination go wild. And if you want to change, for instance, the size of the rear window, you just do it. So I think with the customer deciding to put a smaller back window in this is actually the right decision. It makes it look a little bit more period correct. When it had that larger window in there, it did look a bit too modern. But I think this looks pretty good. Let me know in the comments below. So that's another bit done, another exciting bit done on the pickup truck project. And talking about exciting, we need to reveal the new name for this project. So your suggested names are now in the hat. I'm just going to pick one out at random and we'll see what it's going to be. There's two there. And it's this one here. Bedbug. And to be honest, Bedbug is quite fitting for this project, although there were some amazing names. I can see one just there. Godfiller. I mean, that would have been good as well. But thanks for participating in this. It's only a bit of fun. At least the truck's now got a name. So me and Project Bedbug are going to leave it there for today. Did manage to get quite a few bits rattled off. Pretty happy that we've now got the right shape and size rear window that the customer wanted. So that's great. And we'll continue with this truck in the next episode. And I'll see you guys then. Cheers! As this is a custom truck and there's absolutely no rules to this build, it made me think that what would you guys do if you're restoring or building a truck like this? Let me know what kind of customizations, modifications you'd make in the comments below.